Welcome to One Door Studios Week 11 update. As of today, we've had over 430 investors join the team who have brought in over $281,000. As promised, today we're talking about finding our screenwriter and the process of writing the ever-crucial screenplay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another One Door Studios update. Today's going to be kind of fun because we're talking about screenwriting because this last week we just got our first disbursement of funds from WeFunder, which means we are on the trail for a writer right now. We're going to talk about when we're going to get that writer, potentially, and some other stuff. But I want to talk today a little bit about, first of all, Pixar. So John, Jason, Pixar had a documentary called The Pixar Story. And I was blown away by one part in the documentary when the producers, after watching the first version of, I think it was Toy Story, they were watching the pre-viz version of it. And they said, when they were done watching it, wow, we just made the worst movie in history. And
that had to feel good.
Yeah. The point of that is it's all down to script writing, to the script. And at that point, when they realized they just made the worst movie in history, they realized they needed to strengthen the story itself. And so that's what we're talking about today, is strengthening the story. So a lot of people on our WeFunder or on Facebook have said, oh, how hard can it be? The novel's already written. How hard is it to write a screenplay? John, I think you have a good answer for that question.
Well, you think so?
I think
so.
Well,
it's more than just words on paper, that's for sure. And we do have a Rip Snorton awesome novel that the script is taken from, but just writing it down and getting the story down on paper doesn't approach really what makes a great script great. And that's building the sensibility of the characters and their arcs and and sustaining the chemistry moment for moment through the script, which will be mimicked in the motion picture. It all starts with a great script. If it isn't great, then we're in trouble. So really fine screenwriters know that this is going to take multiple drafts. It's not something a one and done experience. It's something that is going to take layers. You get it down, you look at it, you come back, revisit it, and then you steepen it, you deepen it, you make it a thicker stew. You keep getting it until it's just a roiling mass of emotional, driving, audience engaging experience. Before it's produced, the script has got to be so alive on the page that people just keep turning and getting amazed at what's there.
Yes, it's got to read already, and when you open the script, it's got to read like you're watching the movie already. I mean, I've read some scripts which just don't do that, and I've read some scripts that do. So I remember the first time I met you, it was in a restaurant a few years ago, and I was listening to you talk about how really good cracked script could take 50, 60, 70 drafts to complete. And I was just, my mind was blown because all I was used to at that time was people who had written a draft with some, maybe 5 or 6 revisions. And like, this is the one. So can you give me an example of some really crack development teams and how long it takes for them to develop a script?
One of the best production companies that exists today is Pixar. They're fast, but more than fast, they overwhelm the audience over and over again. When they finished Toy Story that you mentioned, they had an audience already queued up for the next one. And they could have just cranked it out and done kind of a quick repeat, give the audience what they want, but it wouldn't be up to Pixar standards. So they were almost 4 years before the movie came out. They were about 3 years working on the second script.
Wow, that's a long time.
They would not settle for a Matrix 2 phenomenon. They will only do projects where the material meets their standards, and their standard is the audience standard. We may want it quick, but we want it overwhelming when it comes. Yeah. So if it's got to be, just don't disappoint us.
So John, what you're saying is that, Toy Story, Pixar, they could have released Toy Story 2 within a year or two and had tremendous box office sales. But if the story lacked, then it could have, even potentially damaged the universe of Toy Story, right?
Yeah, it would have. And they would have, like, the social media would have killed them, because, right, the first audience leaving the theater would have said, if you haven't seen it, don't. It really blows. Now the audience is the only judge that really matters. There may be critics, but the audience is the hot ticket. And if it doesn't measure, it doesn't measure. So yeah, there wouldn't have been a 3, that's for sure.
John,
although they are doing a new Matrix.
Are they?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard about that too. John, that actually makes me think about the fact that story is certainly not a new art form. It goes back to the dawn of time, really. And if you think about it, Aristotle's Poetics, as Aaron Sorkin likes to point out in his masterclass, is still one of the very best books on story. And what people just need to understand is that script writing, just like novel writing and any other form of art like that, is a very high art form. And the artist really got to put in the time and the effort to make it perfect. And speaking of novel writing, I just wanted to ask you, the novel is obviously in English, and yet it chiefly takes place in China. Do you want to talk about how we're going to tackle that?
Gee, that's a conundrum. I don't know what we're going to do. No, we do. So the novel's written in English. We're going to write the script in English until it gets fairly mature. And then at that point, we will be pulling in a Mandarin-speaking screenwriter from China. Fortunately, we have an office in Beijing. And Yangsu will help us line that up. We're already looking at some. That writer will write it in Mandarin, and that will draw in, because it will be spoken in Mandarin in the motion picture, unlike the novel. And it will be subtitled in the language of whatever audience the audience speaks. But that way we'll have the language that's going to be used in the actual production, and we'll also have the culture that's steeped into the script the way it needs to be. The lead screenwriter will still be the lead screenwriter, but the other screenwriter, their complement to this one that will be doing it in Mandarin, will work off that script, and they will both work together via a translator. So really good question, because that had to happen, and so that's part of our overarching screenwriting plan.
So I know, for, once again, because these updates are for our investors and potential investors, I know that you guys out there are asking, so when are you going to get a screenwriter? How long is it going to take for the first draft? Give me a time frame here, because my money's on the line. So help us out with that, John.
Well, I can give you the first one. I'll let Jay give you the rest of them. He usually keeps the schedule on this stuff. But we should have our screenwriter locked in and started in May. Could happen before that, but that's what we're sitting on, because it's so, the first screenwriter is just so crucial. And most pictures have multiple screenwriters. But once that screenwriter is going, what's our next benchmark, Jay?
Well, we could have our calculated first draft, which of course is going to have multiple polishes, by the end of December. And then after that, we could have our Mandarin screenwriter begin his collaborative draft in February of 2022.
John, you said that each film is made 3 times, right? It's made when it's written, and the film is rewritten when it's shot, and then it's almost rewritten again when it's edited. Not rewritten, but it's redone, and you end up with different products each time.
Yeah, exactly. When it's in screenplay, but screenplay form is the most important, because everything works off of that. Once you film, but yeah, that's a really good point as far as how long it takes, because to produce a picture takes about a year, but the physical production is probably only going to be maybe 10 weeks or so, where you're capturing it all, and then the rest is post after that. So the screenwriting process, no question, takes longer, which could be 18 to 22 months. And I think we're projecting overall, Jay doesn't have the number there, but I think it's about 17 months or so.
Yeah, 16 months. What I was saying is, from the time we get the first screenwriter on, until the time that we get the Mandarin speaking writer collaborating with him is about 10 months. And then after that, we could have a completed draft by June of 2022. And then we may have a recommend level. Coverage ratings are, if we have a recommend level of 96% to 100% on coverage of the English and the Mandarin speaking drafts, if we have that by September of 2022, that would be 16 months.
Okay, our investors and potential investors are saying, coverage? What is that? I'm sure. So, yeah, coverage are professional readers in the film industry. Often they're in development teams, and they keep themselves sharp by reading good material, and some of it not so good, and then they give you ratings. Yeah. And the highest rating is recommend, and that's, I think, 96% and higher. So we go out to three different analysts, and they independently of one another send us their reports. And when we get three recommends, we realize our script is getting baked.
The three levels are passed, meaning not like pass the test, like, no, we'll pass.
Yes.
And then the next one up from that is a consider, right?
Right.
And then the best is recommend, which means, hey, this is a killer script. We would recommend that this film get produced.
Yeah, the caliber writers we use, they usually get very close or into the consider range the first time we have them covered, and then it's all pushing to get to the recommend level.
So one last question.
Coverage is crucial.
Sorry, John. One last question for our investors is, if they've been on IMDb, they may have seen movies that say like has multiple screenwriters, and they go, well, what happened to the first one? Why did the first one screw up? And did they have to get different ones? So what's the actual answer to that question? It usually happens.
Yeah, if they just have bad character attributes, we just have to let them go. No, that's never it. No, it's the screenwriter can just wear themselves out. They can put all the juice they have into it. And even though they've been able to be maybe the only screenwriter on a script, which doesn't happen very often, for whatever reason, they just can't take it further. And then we bring in another writer, and then as many as it takes. Some of them will get pretty much all the script there, but it just needs a little more comedy, or maybe the dramatic tension just isn't tight enough or intense enough, or there's a romantic elements that need to be in there. It just needs to be pumped up in some area, and there are really great writers that can come in, do it fairly quickly, but it makes a huge difference. The comedy is they're called gag writers, and that often makes a huge difference and takes very little time. But that's often what gets into the trailer or even a TV spot. So that's really important.
And there's also, you mentioned dramatic tension, so that suppose the story just doesn't quite have that tension aspect to it. They'll bring another writer in who's just really good at dramatic tension and have them do a pass on the story to add that element.
Yeah.
So John, if a comedy writer is called a gag writer, what is the romance writer called?
Romantic? I don't know. I've never heard a term for them.
John, in some of our other conversations, you've used the phrase underbaked as far as a script is concerned. Yes. What does that mean?
Well, if you compare it to a loaf of bread, for instance, you may really like bread. You may really like a certain kind of loaf, and you're all ready for that. And if you get it and it's a little doughy in the middle, it's really disappointing, because you have this expectation. You know what it tastes like. You know what it's supposed to be. And many scripts are just that. They have great ingredients, but they're just underbaked. They're undercooked. They haven't quite, it just isn't ready for prime time. Certainly not ready for an audience. And unquestionably, the audience is the only judge. Mm-hmm. They're the ones. So even though somebody else might take some creative license or think something is really clever, it's the audience that says, "Oh my gosh, you've got to see this movie." And
Exactly.
That's all we want.
So it's kind of like you've used the phrase a cracked script, where it's like it's fully baked and now this script just sings and it's ready to be produced. If it doesn't read well, it's not going to shoot well.
Yeah, you can make it worse, but you can't make it better. So you need to start it where it's really strong. And we're going out to directors next. And more important than money to a director, we'll pay you twice your regular fee, is a script that really is over the top, really is a page turner. So we're going to a writer who has not read it, likely, the novel at all. We need to be convinced by what we see that they've done in the past that it really works. And then we will have them read the novel and come back to us and tell us what it's going to be like in script form. And then if they convince us, we're going to turn them loose on it, but then they have to do the work. And it's going to be really challenging, but we're hoping that we have one writer, a single writer on it, and that happens once in a while, that takes it all the way and is able to do it. But we're not counting on that because that is the extreme exception, not the rule. So we'll do our best, get the right people that's taking the first swing and hopefully takes it. And it could be a team. We're looking at some writing teams, 2 people. One of them is a husband and wife team, and that also could work.
So that's it. So looks like maybe by May we'll have our writer, but we'll be looking intensely until we find that first writer, and then our next target after that would be the getting the Chinese writer in January, February. So we will keep you guys posted and informed when we find that writer, and kind of can't tell you who we're looking at the moment because that's kind of confidential, isn't it, John?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But they're really strong writers.
Yeah.
Hey, we just want to say thank you, by the way. We're really thankful for all the investors we have. What do we have, over 400 now?
430 something, 438, 440.
You guys are really exciting to work with, and it's a joy for all of us when we talk about all of your comments and everything you're bringing to this project.
Yeah, we're answering messages all the time from various investors who have questions, want to know a little more. So thank you for doing that, guys. Thanks for being on the team, being on board.
Hold that hope and prayers in our behalf, that we find the people that we need to find and we get the right folks in. Appreciate you.
All right. We'll see you guys really soon.
Next week.